Welcome to Live Ed.
Hello, good afternoon, Abby. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Live Ed. It's our episode number 4. This is the first time that we actually invited parents and students. We used to just invite teachers. Now we have parents and students because we want it to become, especially later at the during the question and answer, just in case some people from the parent side or the student side would like to ask questions and learn from this Zoom session.
So, on behalf of Benilde's Hub of Innovation for Inclusion, or HIFI, and Power Max Center, we would like to welcome you to Live Ed Season 2.
We are honored to have with us this afternoon Miss Chelo Borromeo-Gemina and, of course, Miss Annamel Severino.
I am busy because there's an upcoming monthly test, so we should review a lot.
I would say I'm pretty productive naman lately with ACADS and my other stuff. But then, because of the parang workload, parang it gets overwhelming at times. So there are days where I just don't want to do, where I just put my homework aside and do it the next day.
Stress ako sa marami pong ginagawa sa school.
Ayun, I'm still surviving and thriving despite the internet difficulties that we bump into every now and then, or more often than we would like. I'm feeling great because my midterm grades are good so far, and I'm planning to make them better. So.
I have been more tired than usual since I always stay up late to finish the things my teachers assign me to do. Other than that, I think that I am able to cope well with the lessons that are given to us.
Let me give the first reaction, Chelo. Listening to that, okay. I said, parang wala namang problema pala eh. They all said, yes, okay, I feel okay. I feel that. But there seems to be something deep down there that's happening. It's not so obvious. It's obviously something down there. They have not said it yet because we have not asked the right questions. And so that is my first reaction to that video. We know as parents and as teachers that there is a form of difficulty that they are experiencing. So maybe let's try to uncover that in this session. So Abby, you have anything?
I'm good. I mean,
Good.
Number one, my first reaction is they're so cute. That's my reaction. They're so cute. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give the floor to Miss Chelo.
Yeah, Miss Chelo. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are very interesting. I love the students. First, let me jump right to it. Tip number 1, we need to understand context. Okay, we are all in the middle of very challenging circumstances. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say that any student, without batting an eyelash, would say that they're busy or overwhelmed with school or simply tired. But what makes this season different is that both teachers and students are grappling with environments and scenarios that are very new and challenging in our context with respect to schooling. For instance, we are all confined to our homes. That alone has psychological effects on adults, more so students. And students are not always able to verbalize those feelings of confusion or abnormality and pressures enough to figure all things out on their own. Second, just like Annamel, internet connections are a hurdle for almost everyone. I know because in ACS Manila, we run our lessons in ballet, piano, drums, and all our other offerings with fluctuating connections. Third, a student sits in front of the gadgets the whole morning, if not the whole day. Thus, the challenges of school become magnified and larger than life because there are little or no extra and external environments that can provide support that we used to have before. And so the weight on the students is much heavier. Now, there is also a stark difference between homeschooling, like what we did, and the schooling that happens now at home. Homeschoolers do school at home as a matter of choice. On the other hand, regularly schooled students, teachers, and now parents find themselves having no choice but to do school at home because of the pandemic. In the case of the latter, there is a natural resistance right there. And all of these are happening for both the teachers and the students. Now, all that said, our tip number 2 is knowing the importance of dialogue between students, parents, and school authorities so that there is a constant process of observation and listening to each other. We used to do this a lot in homeschooling because when I homeschooled, homeschooling was very young in the Philippines. And so we had to even meet with the Department of Education. We enrolled overseas and affiliated with them and do a lot of trial and error in the beginning and then adjust and then do better. And all that is okay. And that's my point. We need to accept that all that is okay. In truth, this is true for anything and everything in life. Open communication is vital to healthy relationships, and certainly it is crucial in the process of education. Of course, when we dialogue, we come in with a posture of wanting to listen to the other party and understand instead of just expressing our own points of view or demanding what we feel is right. Now, naturally, after the dialogue, all parties need to come up with what to do, how to implement the ideas, and that everyone feels will work, and a working timetable, just so that it's realistic. There.
Yeah. So maybe, thank you, Chelo. I'd like to give time to Annamel to ask a question or react to what you said. Annamel?
This new normal has definitely been a struggle for everyone, more so for the kids. Having too much to do seems to be the number one complaint, both by students and parents. Chelo, how much schoolwork do you think should teachers give the students in this new schooling from home setup?
Okay, I have to answer correctly because there are students here, right? So I have
It's
to
a tough question.
I have to answer very nicely.
Yeah.
I think every teacher is like a shepherd of his own flock of students, and the teachers really would know the extent that the students understand their lessons or not. So the goal is to make sure that the students do understand. So there's no point in belaboring the whole lesson if you already know that the students understand. Now, if they don't, which the teacher I feel will feel, while teaching, it would be wise for the teacher to give just enough to make sure that they do understand. I'm talking about the maths, the sciences, but for English, maybe my practical recommendation is to give the minimum so that they clock it in, but then give maybe an incentive if you want to learn more. This is, there could be layers of objectives from the teachers to the students so that the students have the option to gain extra points or something like that. So I can't say like how much, because it really depends on the age and the level of the student, but essentially that, just enough for them to get the point.
Mm.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much. Yeah. Is that all right? Annamel, yes, we'll have more time to discuss this. And clearly, I love the way you articulated dialogue between parents, school, and school authorities, because I've heard about some schools, parents writing to their administrator saying, there's too much, and then they change. At the start, there was a lot, and then suddenly the teachers began to understand that Friday might not be the best time to give an assignment. Friday may not be we have to talk to other teachers when they give assignments, just like in the regular school, actually, where you cannot put too many things that ask the students to do. And in a very special way this time, because of the pandemic, our students cannot go out or, film this, take a picture of this, get this from the library. It's as difficult. It's more difficult at this time. So thank you for this observation, for your tips. And this live episode is a good testimony of how we want that constructive and spaced dialogue between you, parents and teachers and students. You're all here, so this dialogue can happen. I'd like to proceed to the next question, which is, of course, going to be taken care of by Abby.
Me.
Abby, yeah.
It's me. Oh, I love the question of Annabelle. It's so spot on. How much work is enough? Okay. Thank you, Annabelle, for that really, really good question to start things off. Okay, let's proceed to the next question. We will play a video, and the next question is, what do you like? Take note, like about online distance learning.
Well, personally, there's like specific subjects which are actually we prefer to be online, like for example, computer-based subjects, because it's easier to see how the teacher talks and all his lessons through online learning, because you can see it right in front of you. It's somehow projects a one-on-one type of interaction.
What I like about online class is I don't have to wake up early, just on my tablet or phone, so I can just go to the Zoom app and on it. So it's pretty easy.
Well, what I like about online classes, because we get to wake up later than the usual, and since our class finishes at 12 o'clock, we get to finish early. So I feel like this is better than the usual time. I feel like I get enough rest after. What I like about online classes is that the teachers is very kind when submitting the assignments, because we have longer submission dates.
Nothing. Marami pong time makapag-aral po. Pag may mga test or exam, mas marami pong time for me po. Kasi unlike nung pagpapasok dati, parang kailangan pong gumising ng mas maaga compared to online classes. Mas medyo flexible yung schedule mo in terms of pag nag-aaral.
Really worried about how my performance or how my academic performance in general would be impeded by internet issues, like how I couldn't catch up with online discussions. But having a balance of asynchronous sessions and synchronous sessions really eased my worries about that. And so at least if I know that the weather's bad, at least I can just load up on data, for example, to make things more manageable during scheduled synchronous sessions. And from Bolt to Vibe, I think things have gotten really better in terms of scheduling Zoom classes as well. Another thing I like also is how multimodal things are, or how the approach is more user-friendly.
Using my time more. So given that we're in online distance learning right now, a lot of the professors that I have online doing video calls like this, because a lot of times it gets laggy or you have a hard time communicating. So we have a lot of assignments that are asynchronous. We have a lot of asynchronous classes, and I like that better because I get to manage my time more.
You know what?
I
I
love
found
it.
yeah. For me,
Go
Abby,
ahead, go
first,
ahead.
I'm a qualitative researcher at heart. So the thing that comes to me are, representing, may not represent everybody there, but it's very important for me to know that maybe that age, that group, that age, this certain age does not like online distance learning. And you heard that from that little boy. He's so cute. He says, if you were to ask, what do you like about online distance learning? And like a devil's advocate, I agree with him. Nothing. There's really nothing that I like about it. I want my friends. I want everybody. I want swing. I want to go around the school. There's no swing in the house. There's no fighting with my friends. So let's see. What is your actually? Maybe Abby, you have something before we go to Chelo?
Yeah, no, I think it's just so distinct that I honestly think and feel that the kids that we have interviewed, the students we have interviewed, have learned time management. No,
Yes, actually true.
for me, that's a very powerful thing, because as a parent, di ba, what we always do, oy, gising ka na, oy, mag-homework ka na, oy, kain na. Oh, so but now I feel like, they are able to manage their own time, adjust, and they appreciate that there is no travel. The time lost in riding the school bus and traveling to school, is they can maximize on rest, and with the existing time that they have, they're able to manage. So I really agree with that, also as a parent and as a work from home girl. Okay, Chalo.
Okay, great minds think alike. Okay, regarding time management. So, homeschooled or not, or house schooled or not, good time management is always a good value to have. And that is tip number 3. For example, sleep is very important, but it is a seemingly disregarded factor. Both parents and teachers know this, and this is why our students in the video said they're able to sleep longer. But by the quantity of homework that students get today, it almost seems like this is disregarded. Good time management is necessary for both the teacher and the students. 3 of our students mentioned how they appreciate teachers who are organized and can present the curriculum and plans for the entire semester. This way, the controls are managed much more seamlessly. The teacher gains the opportunity to pace the students, and the students can anticipate the lessons. They can plan for submissions or study their framework, whether there is a test or not. In short, no one's harassed. If assignments are given early, this gives students more time to research, work with groups, and plan everything instead of giving photo finished work. I would like to add that for assigned group work, it would be wise to have either a segment of the class where the students are introduced to each other and there can be exchanges of contact details, or a directory of emails so that communication is easier. You know how it is when only one member of the entire group does the whole group's work, and it always happens even before the pandemic. So I think that those are my 2 cents worth, opening lines of communication. And now our tip number 4, in line with that, is to consider the learning styles of students and the available technology today. Now, many conflicts arise from the disconnection, or they call disconnect, between the teacher's learning style or strength versus the students. For example, a teacher who is an auditory learner will likely give multiplication tables that are sung. But if the student is a visual learner, the songs might prove to be a distraction instead of a tool. Or if the teacher is visual and the student is kinesthetic, the teacher could misread the student as not paying attention when actually he learns best by feeling the concept. For example, dribbling a ball while reciting the same multiplication table. Belle mentioned multimodal, that pretty girl in the video. With the sophistication that gadgets and the internet world has given us, learning has become faster. I also recognize that, I must admit that I'm gadget challenged myself. But I recognize that gadgets today are the way to go. However, it still takes a sensitive human being to discern and decide when to use what and how. It's like me, sometimes I call Citibank and say, I want to talk to a human being. Julia mentioned how she prefers asynchronous classes for better time management, from which we can deduce that she's probably a visual learner because she needs to see the A to Z. And 2, some of her classes are likely not given the whole semester's plan up front. And so she feels a greater need for a sense of time management because it is she who sets that pace instead of solely the teacher. Now, this might work for college students, but elementary students might get lost in this kind of arrangement. For younger students, a lot is really dependent on the teacher's time management skills. Allow me to say that at this point, that the goal of education is not primarily nor solely to finish a lesson. The goal is for the students to learn and enjoy the process of learning. If those are achieved, the chances for finishing the lessons are also higher because the student will want to learn and so finish. The gadgets make everyone's work easier as things are done at a click, but we do not want to become slaves to the gadgets. The gadgets are our slaves.
Thank you, Chelo. I love that one. As a teacher myself, as a professor, faculty in college, and also homeschooled, it's my pet peeve. The whole thing of coverage rather than mastery and learning.
Yes.
I really feel that that whole concept is magnified now, and like I said, the silver lining is a lot of the teachers are discovering that more importantly, it's the wellness of a person more than coverage of a lesson, right? So I love that one. Now I'm super curious, what would Miss Annamel think about this one? I'm curious from the perspective of a parent. Is there anything that you like about online distance learning? Miss Annamel, are you
As
there?
parents naman, of course. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, clear,
Okay.
clear.
As parents naman, I like that we have more time with the kids. But our challenge even before was making sure that we put limit on our kids' use of technology. And we even have apps to do that. In our house, we call it tech breaks. But in this new normal, school and socializing with their friends are all online. And it has been harder to find a balance.
Yeah.
Chelo, do you have any suggestions on what we can do so that our kids, to avoid having our kids spend all of their time in the computer?
Okay. I think at this point maybe we can learn a little bit from the corporate world. Of course, they're ahead because of they have financial deliverables attached to their work ethics. There was one thing that I learned actually from our church. No, I noticed that the tables are positioned at chest level. So I said, "Why are your tables very high?" And then they said, you notice that there are tables where you can sit by them and the tables where you can stand beside them. So they say that every hour they're forced to stand. So they work while standing and then alternate it between sitting and standing. Now, for those of us who are at home, well, our homeschool was a little bit interesting because my kids used to homeschool while in bed. And then they would go around the sala, or they would really relocate. I would suspect that your kids are probably using gadgets like laptops or iPads so that they're mobile. And so you can do it in the garden, so they're not it doesn't feel like it's confined to one particular space. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Chelo.
I think, of course, one of the main factors that a lot of people bring up is that there's limited interaction, especially for the teachers. Communication is a little slower because it's different from one in the classroom because the students are more receptive that way. And also, it's a little harder because of the connection, the internet connection, depending on where you are located.
What I don't like, I'm not sure if it's true, but it seems that they've been giving more homeworks and much more projects than we did when we went to school. I'm not sure if that's true, but even so, that's one of the few things that I dislike about online classes now, and that because some teachers think we have so much time now because we're at home, they make deadlines for some projects much shorter than it should be.
Group works, and that's exactly what I don't like, because um group works, we need to communicate with others, but because of the technical difficulties and the internet connection, sometimes we don't even get to call them to join our meetings and participate in our tasks. So it's kind of hard to do group works.
Everything. Communication, noise.
Problem on this is that personally me, I learn better when there is a teacher discussing in front of me. And in online classes, obviously, it is not always synchronous, which means we are given modules to read, and sometimes I do not really understand the lesson well through these modules only. And to add, most of the time we have low internet connection here, which makes it hard for me to join synchronous classes.
Communication also, because it's hard to get a hold of the professors at times, and more importantly, it's hard to get a hold of your classmates, your group mates, especially if you have classes where you haven't met each other yet. So communication is hard. Yeah.
Okay, Abby,
Right.
you want to react first?
Yeah, I'll react first. I mean, again, Javi is so cute. What do you dislike? Everything. What do you like? Nothing. But at least now he was able to clearly articulate, which I think are super true. You know, access to good communications, connectivity. And then he said noise. No, the noise inside the house because everybody's at home. So and I can feel that personally as well. But I also appreciate and when he was so gentle. I really like the disposition of the students that we spoke with. The disposition, I don't know if it's true, but I think they've been giving a lot of assignments. So that's my first reaction. And when I give the floor to Chelo to react to that.
Okay. My heart really goes out to the teachers and the students and the parents because it's really a challenge. But let me jump to our tip number 5. Just like a genuine homeschool, the teacher in this context that we're talking about determines the pacing. The student also has his own pacing to do for the work per se. But on a large scale, it's really the teacher who paces the work because really it is the teacher who knows the syllabus from top to bottom. Now, I want to interject. I am not aware of the requirements that the institutions have upon the teachers, and so I won't speak about that. But both homeschool and traditional school teachers pace the work to help the student succeed and not just to organize for organization's sake. The heart is really to help the student. Now, tip number 6 is my expertise. So if I may step in here more personally, integrate co-curricular activities like the arts and sports for a well-rounded education and to address other intelligence areas. And I will explain also why. Even under normal circumstances, the value of having co-curricular activities like the performing arts and sports cannot be overemphasized. Young people need physical movement and tangible avenues to express emotions, passion, and artistry and athletic inclinations, especially because students tend to be in front of their gadgets mostly seated and engaged in focused mental work. The lessons in the performing arts or sports are a welcome partner. Although the lessons are done online too, the deliverables are still physical. This makes a world of a difference. I would like to stress that even without the pandemic or quarantine, the list of advantages is endless when it comes to having co-curricular activities alongside academics. I will say no, in ACS Manila, almost all our students are in the honor roll precisely because their development is holistic. They learn how to manage their time also necessarily. Now, coming to tip number 7, permit me to share this regardless of background. Prioritize family time because it is divinely ordained. I homeschooled my two sons. They're now aged 32 and 23 because I wanted to spend time with them while they were growing up. And I did. It was not easy, especially when they were very young and needed a lot of attention. Many times I asked myself, did I finish college and take masteral units just to play Lego or collect Tyrannosaurus Rex? But a wise pastor said, the very reason you have a high educational attainment is precisely because you will be the one to train your children to fulfill their own destiny in God with excellence. This pandemic has given us, at least the parents, that opportunity to be a little more involved and a little more engaged in our children's education. For me and my husband, homeschooling was our biggest avenue by which we were able to impart our values. Whether homeschooling or traditional schooling, this is certainly an open invitation for all. Today, we have no choice but to stay at home because of the pandemic. It doesn't take a lot to figure out that this is a divinely permitted time and it is carved out for us to spend time with our families, among other equally important things. And so we spin it and we grab it. Doing so gives our children, young or old, a deeper emotional anchor that could result in so many great things in their future than just a better frame of mind for learning today. For example, for younger children, reading aloud to them is a truly magical moment. This develops linguistic ability. Using manipulatives for math or doing actual experiments for science makes it a more dynamic learning experience. For older students, say high school or even college, discussions are fun. And in truth, they reveal the heart of the students. That way, parents intrinsically provide the buttress for pressures that students get from a lot of academic requirements. We hit two birds with one stone: discuss the subject matter and connect with our children. You know, I also teach creative writing and public speaking classes aside from ballet. As a teacher, I need to understand that there are other needs that students have for now that take precedence over academic content per se. When a student feels demotivated or discouraged, for example, this is where we parents can come in and just listen. It was my sons, Michael and Nathan, who said to me, Mom, your generation is not listening. So instead of being defensive, I stopped and assessed how indeed my generation is probably not listening. So I too am learning. Of course, this is not to say that we should not teach what we need to teach. I'm just saying that we parents and teachers need to be sensitive to those realities and see where we can help and direct young people so that they begin to like school or school at home or learning in general. I'm sure the students in the audience today would agree probably with me if I say if people only listen more, they will probably talk and confide more as well.
Annamel? Thank you, Chelo. Because we're just, I think Annamel has already many things in her mind because of
I know.
of the tips that you had and all the sharing. So maybe Annamel?
Yes, I love your tips, Cello. And this new setup has been thrust on all of us without warning, without preparation, and without options. We didn't have any options. It has been difficult, but it's especially more difficult to see our children get frustrated and struggle. As parents, how can we help them? How can we be more effective guides or teachers in terms of school?
Okay, I'm not sure if I got the latter part of what you said. May I answer now? Okay, now.
I can answer.
Okay, so all right. Anyway, of course, there's a long list of answers to that one question, and it's hinged on how old the child is. You know, there was something that an American shared with us when my kids were about like 4 or 5, and she was sharing how a child who spends time on your lap will gain so much in his or her emotional bank account. You know, that's one of my greatest secrets, perhaps as a parent or as a ballet teacher or as a teacher in general. When we spend time with a child, to just sincerely listen to them, put them on our laps when they're young, listen to them when they're in middle school, and genuinely listen to them when they're in high school, it will provide the foundation for which they gain the confidence in doing possibly anything and everything. I remember many years ago, when somebody was saying, you know, to listen. I spent time just listening to this student when I was much younger, and then she said that, you know, it's so interesting talking to you, and I figured in my mind, oh, I didn't really say much. I really just listened, and because of that moment when we deposit the time to really hear what the students are saying, then maybe we gain the practicals of how to address their needs. If I may say, since I'm Filipino, so I can say this, most Filipinos, when they tell me in my years of teaching ballet, I ask the parents, did you talk to your daughter? And the parent will always say, yes, I talked to my daughter already, and we understand each other. And later on, I asked the student, did your mom talk to you? She said she talked to you. And the student says, yeah, she talked, I just listened. So, you know, there was really, the process of communication was not complete. So that's really, maybe that's a bit bird's eye view of what I wanted to share. And my heart goes out because I know you have no choice, but trust me, as you go through it, it gets better. It will get better because we've been there, you know, through pulling the hair and all, it gets better.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, bro, should I?
Go ahead. Good question. Yes.
Okay. I wanna kind of build also on what Chelo mentioned about trust, because I'm likewise, especially I think, you know, I mean, have your child in your lap, then if you put that in the high school, in a college context, how do you actually do that, right? So I figured that we really need to understand the love language of our children. Like, how do they communicate to us? Because sometimes before they actually will speak to us, it means that there must have been some trust built already, enough for them to speak. But perhaps they speak in other forms, like they don't talk to us about their concerns or challenges. Maybe they talk to us about, oh, I love this book so much, will you read it, mama? So because that's how I experience it. Like, I know that the way to my son's heart, and he's listening right now, it's kind of odd, is that when he talks about he loves a certain book, or he loves a certain movie or animated movie, even if I'm not into it, I will make an effort to watch it. And I feel like that's the way trust could be built. And then you could start conversing and really dialogue with each other for grown-up kids, right? Okay. So I will go on to the next question. The next question, I think this is the fourth question, is how do you handle distractions?
It's mostly time management. You plan ahead on when you're going to study or when you're going to do things that you like. But a lot of the time, it's really hard because of other factors, like you don't really feel like you're taking a break even when you are, because you're still in front of the computer, or you can't really go anywhere else.
I would try and not open other tabs in my computer to distract myself. But then again, there are some moments where I feel like I should distract myself, because honestly, the more I think, the more I struggle with learning, at least in my case. So at times I would open a tab to talk with my friend for a bit before going back to writing down notes and continue on with the lesson.
Whenever I have online classes, Chloe is always next to me, supervising me because we take online classes in the same room. Okay. So if I have one out, she would kurot me sometimes. Tapos, I also keep my phone away from me when it's class time, so I don't get distracted at my notifications.
Seems very superficial, but it kind of worked for me. Like just changing into like proper clothes as you would like going to face-to-face classes, like that just helps and like really puts you in the mindset of okay, I need to get stuff done, compared to like just accomplishing your task in sweatpants and in your pajamas. Like it really helps put you in the mindset. Well, there's wisdom behind like school uniforms. Now I appreciate them a lot more. And just making a to-do list, both on paper and on your phone, really helps. And also I find that separating devices for work and play as you would helps and lessens distractions, because during face-to-face classes I go to the library, so I could feel pressure like, oh, I really need to get this stuff done because like other people are like studying and stuff, and that kind of thing went away with the whole pandemic thing. But I kind of recreated through YouTube videos, because sometimes like there's like YouTube videos, they create content like study with me for 25 minutes, so it acts as a timer and also sets the vibe of doing the task.
It's really hard to drive my attention away from this by focusing on studying, of course. And for example, if I want to watch a certain video, I tell myself that I can watch that video after I accomplish everything I need to do.
Let me react first. Okay. Before I could not understand why would we force our students to wear their uniform. I mean, it's too much expense. They're not really going to school, and you have to wash their clothes and stuff. But now I realize, especially with what Belle has mentioned, there's something behind it that makes you say, if I'm in my uniform, I will do my task. So maybe that's one of the ways we can make our students work on certain things, our children work on certain. It may not be good for everyone, but if it works for your kids, wow, that seems to be a great one. The other one is also how do they handle distraction? I think what is important, that what we'll do now is listen again to the parents themselves, or Chelo and then Annamel, to tell us, okay, from their own point of view, what would it be? What did the students say? And what is their point of view regarding this?
Yes, thank you, Rodan. I couldn't have said it better. Whatever works, use it. It's interesting how the students in the videos pointed out certain decisions that they had to make to remove the distractions from studying. Notice that they are external manifestations of internal values that are already in them from a young age. Annie has discipline in staying away from other tabs. Belle gets into the zone by dressing up. And Sophia decides to prioritize school before watching other non-school videos. These tell us that there were values in their persona that were kicking in. No? Therefore, we focus on values. And to do that, we need to identify what is important to us as families. Because once those are established and clear, motivating students becomes more reasonable to manage. So tip number 8, teach values as a fundamental goal. In my family, we value the Bible as God's word and reading it every day. We value good manners and right conduct, respect for authority, protocols, kindness to others, radical generosity, and things like that. And so we instilled the same to our sons so that later on, they had their own self-government that started to kick in as they got older. We also defined our non-negotiables so that when they asked us why they were not allowed to do this or to do that, watch this and not that, listen to this and not to that, they knew the foundations from which they were. They now acted based on the why instead of the what. When I first prepared for this talk, I thought of saying things like reward and sanction. We certainly did a lot of that during our homeschooling days. But I was concerned that if I said those things, they might lead to us thinking of externals. In one of our competitions, I gathered the parents of my dancers and encouraged them to give their gifts to their competing children before we left the country to compete and not after. Now, why did I do that? If competing students won, they would have communicated that they were being rewarded for the medal. If they lost, it would have come across like a bomb or some sort of just consolation. But if they give the gift before the competition, it would have communicated support, love, and rewarding the process rather than the medal. Again, it's the value we espouse. Internal government dictates external government. I know that there are educators here, and if I may add, I recommended to one school, do you know those medals for academic excellence that are this big? And then the values medals are like small. I said, if we want to raise children with good values, the medals should also be this big, So I started doing my own medals that were that big for values. So those are my 2 cents worth for this question.
Thank you, Chelo. Maybe Annamel, you have a reaction? Maybe Abby, you have a question? You have something to react on this?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I really appreciate that how the students have manifested something that is so difficult. That whole internal governance and time management. That is something so difficult to harness. And in this whole scenario, we're not even 1 year into the whole online distance learning, but they've kind of learned that one. I mean, I'm just curious, like Chelo, are there like practical stuff like on how to teach those values of internal governance and stuff?
Okay. Well, all right. Like in my family, I'll just give my family as an example. We teach them, for instance, the love for God and the fear of God, because, things like lying, nobody will, sometimes you won't know if somebody cheats or my kids grew up without knowing what cheating was because there was no classmate to cheat from, right? So we know that. But then, later on, there were other avenues through which we inculcated this concept. And at the end of the day, we would ask them, is that something that you can live with? Is that something that God would approve of? Or is that something you can face God with? So it was an underlying principle that the students observe, no? Or for example, respect for authority. And then you have classmates who are complaining against their teacher, against their principal, against whomever. And really, it boils down to a respect for authority. And, if this is inculcated at a young age, then you won't have shaking fists against schools or government, for instance. That's something that one of the values that we teach our children is you don't go against authority, because at the end of the rope, that's going against God. So, there are too many harsh consequences that road leads to. So that's just an example.
Thanks.
Since we are running, well, we have to keep to the time so that people will really make use of this time for really focusing on what we have. I'd like us to move already to the last video, and then after the last video is a time for us to cover the questions that were placed that were posted in the chat room. Okay, so we'll move to the. And then Annamel, who has a question now, had difficulty with the connection, will ask her questions later.
Okay.
So the last question is, suggestions, of course, to improve online classes. What do you think the students will say?
I think better communication, of course. The teachers should always be more sensitive to other students who don't have good connection, but also I think they need to find more ways to interact with the students, like games or somehow to get their attention, to simulate more of just on the interact, just more interaction, like simulate a classroom setting, basically.
Well, it would be the amount of assignments they've been giving, because many students have been complaining about this, and it would really mean a lot to us if they took a chance to notice that struggle of ours and would do something about that.
Okay.
And as well as many students have a mental illness, and I really care about that, knowing how some of my friends go through that, and it would really mean a lot if they don't put so much on them, knowing how they're also going through something.
My suggestion is on weekends they don't have to give homework, because weekend should be rest day, and the teacher should give advanced lessons so we can study it fast. And the chat should be disabled so there's no popping up while the class during class.
So I suggest that instead of requiring a lot of projects that have to be submitted, they should just give big projects instead. Tapos I also suggest that online classes should start earlier in the morning so that it could end earlier in the afternoon. And afternoon classes, like let's say from 1 hanggang 3 p.m. in my situation, they should be asynchronous instead.
Focus not on the workload being given, but on how a student is able to understand and apply the things they teach. For example, like you know, rather than giving us mojos to read, I suggest giving more videos, because I think some students are able to recall lessons better if they hear it. For me, I also use these videos as guides when I take notes.
It's really organization, because it really helps the students and the professors themselves, because a lot of times they think that it's just for us, for them to be organized, but it's really for them as well, because they won't have a hard time looking for the assignments that they told us to do or their announcements, etc. Because I have a lot of professors who are not yet used to the online learning platform, which is totally okay. But then other professors, kasi they're very organized, the modules are there, the assignments, even until the end of the term, we can see what's up ahead already, and that really helps, especially for those who are having a hard time and don't have stable Wi-Fi. So if they missed something, they know what they missed and they can catch up right away.
Not an online class.
Oh, another one, that guy. Okay. Yeah, the answer to this, well, how to improve it? Not an online class. Of course, yes. But if we had to and we have to, then we go for online classes. And how do we improve it? Well, very much what the student said, time management, communication, and many other things. I'd like to focus on time management of our professors. Aside from that, I'm not acting as a parent, so I wouldn't know what time management is for a parent. But for professors, I think they time management that you can work on is in terms of your class. You have to understand how students are actually grappling with 3 other or 4 other courses, and you manage your time with their time, and then you have to understand that they will do their work, and therefore they might not be doing your work for this day. So then when you send assignments, you have to be very clear on what day you want them to send it, so that they can put that in their calendar, how much time they will spend for this. There are just so many things, actually. So before I go into that, I'd like maybe Abby or Chelo. Abby, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I gravitate towards one suggestion of big projects. Why don't we look into big projects? I think even on regular school, when we were not doing online distance learning, that was something I've been really wanting. Because the small projects, for me, 21st century skills is collaboration and being able to manage projects. And we can't really manage projects if we just collaborate with our classmates on a very short stint, like, 2 meetings and then you submit already. But if you actually get to launch something together, execute something together, conceptualize, execute something together, I think that's really beautiful learning of not just project managing, but also dealing with other personalities in a group, like, dealing with other characters and personas of your classmates. So I love that suggestion.
Yeah, maybe just to add to what you just said, yeah, I think big projects, but before you can go to big projects, you need this little skills, right? So we must make the skills. I think the skills should be clear enough to our students that these are not just assignments. These are assignments to help you build that big project. So yeah, that would be the context of the little assignments that they have. But of course, Chelo has something to share with us. So Chelo?
Okay. If I may add to what you both said, maybe since there are educators who are listening here, maybe the feedback or the evaluation of group work has to be very clear also, because I've been teaching ballet for 39 years already, and my dancers end up doing most of the work, 80% of the work for the entire group, because nobody wants to move. So there must be feedback to that. Okay, so I come to my last tip with the number 9, which is simple, and it is a battle cry. We have to believe in the next generation. They are worth fighting for. Our students in the video spoke of sensitivity to them, mental illness, a growing concern today, no homework on weekends, scheduling of synchronous and asynchronous classes, videos instead of modules, organization with the ending of savvy saying not an online class. Sometimes we tend to stereotype students, or maybe I should say people in general. High school students are said to be this way, kids that way, boys behave this way or girls that way, old people are like this and young people are like that. Stereotyping, aside from being offensive, can deprive us all of the discovery of the beauty of the uniqueness with which God made us. In the homeschool or house school, or even traditional school setting, I think it is kind to proceed from the premise that young people do want to learn, and they do want to excel, and they do want to do great work. And that if they're not yet able to, then it is the responsibility of teachers to help them discover a workable path to achieve those. Why is it important to begin with this mindset? I think moving from this premise affects the way we teachers or parents will manage our schools. It will affect the way we treat the students. It will determine what tone of voice we will use. It will determine the expectations. When we begin with the mindset of believing in the next generation, we will also necessarily have an innate vote of confidence in the young people that will infuse them with faith to believe that they can do great things. This is an obviously more positive approach than one who thinks that, for example, students are just lazy or they take the easy way out, in which case we could end up speaking to them in impatient tones or not encouraging them to explore beyond their comfort zones. There is a whole gamut of extras that we will throw in when we believe in the next generation. Extra encouragement, extra tips, extra leads, and if I might add, benefit of the doubt. And in truth, when we do, students do rise to the occasion.
Very good. Yes. Thank you, Chelo. Annamel is back, hopefully. Annamel, can you, because
Yes.
we have lesser time now, so maybe at last to ask Annamel to ask her question.
Yes. What moved me was when Anne talked about mental wellness or worrying about the mental health of her friends. So I would often ask my kids how their friends are doing, especially those who are I know who are having a hard time or lack support in this new setup. Mental wellness should definitely be talked about more. So I would like to ask Chelo, how can we help our kids when they become mentally exhausted because of by this online learning setup.
Okay, I think the reason why my students confide in me is because I really just listen to them. So I think it's really listening to the young people and giving them a chance to be heard and to really listen. That's it.
Thank you so much, Chelo. Let's go back to some of the questions that were asked above. I think Andrea asked something right above there. Let me see. Okay, and Rhea says, my school, this really has to do with, is the curriculum fixed? That there's no more time for adjustment, no room for adjustment? What do you think, Chelo? Can they adjust? Yeah.
Well, when I was even as a ballet teacher, I would always make my voice heard by the school administration because ACS Manila is affiliated with academic schools, and I'm very happy to say that they do listen. So I think that here's a very important tip. When we parents come to the school, I think it's important to be able to communicate so that it's not an attack to the school, but really a sincere desire to help the students and not just to rant, because there are some parents who do that. But for the most part, the schools are willing to listen, I think, and within the framework of what they too have to fulfill as a school. So it goes higher and higher. Maybe the educators, those who are in schools, can answer that better. Bro, Dan?
Yeah. But anyway, we don't have time. I'd like to cover first all the questions so that I think you did very well with that one. The other question is from Andrea, who asked something quite interesting. What are the things that we should keep from regular so that we can, when we go back face to face, it still be there, and also that we can also import into online class? What are these regular schooling tips that you think we should continue having? Yeah.
Okay. First of all, the practices online that we can apply long after this pandemic is gone, and it's going to be gone. All right. So, I think the avoiding too many warm body meetings, if we can discuss it online first and then limit the warm body meetings, I think that would save a lot of traffic mess when we finally go back to face-to-face meetings. And it would also save us a lot of travel time. So it will be fair for group mates, let's say, of students. That's certainly one. And then on the other hand, from the traditional to online, I think the what do you call it, the asynchronous classes, I think are very precious because it allows the students to manage their own little tables of management and prepare them for the workplace later on.
So Abby, yes, thank you, Chelo. Abby, maybe some points from you before we, close this session. It's about 5:30 now. So
I know.
Yeah,
I know, but we still have a lot
such an
of
interesting discussion. We
questions.
can go on forever, but we will not do that for you, of course, because I'm sure you're working on it. Please stay on because we have something more for those who are staying a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, on my end, just to maybe recap both the first question and then the second question. I as an educator, curriculum is not fixed, for sure. It is never fixed. And the true testament of a good curriculum and a good educational system is always that it's always iterating and adjusting according to the needs of the time. And obviously, the needs are so different now, no? So, but what I think is more important is not we don't go on a rally and rant about the curriculum or with depth ed. But I think what this is teaching us, and I so love it, is that education is a parent and school partnership.
Yes.
It's not about parents, because I'm both end of the spectrum. I am a teacher, but I'm also a parent, So it's not about us paying tuition fee and depositing our children in school, and that's about it. But because now we all of a sudden feel the magnitude of schooling because they're at home, we are invested, and which is, I think, a beautiful thing. No, so I think it's really good that we keep this dialogue and we sharpen each other parents sharpen the school and the school sharpens the parents as well. That we are partners in this thing, and curriculum must always be adjusting. Of course, there are theories and fundamental learnings that needs to be done, and you cannot change that, theories and stuff. But there are things that can be adjusted according to the call of the time. So for me, that's one. And I also want to be able to address Miss Andrea Mendoza's question about online learning as something that will be here to stay. So maybe if it's not online learning, I think definitely, massive online classes. That has been happening years before this pandemic. And it has been happening. It has been a great equalizer. And I think there are more people nowadays who realize I'm more inclined to do online learning. So that is definitely there to say. But in terms of digital transformation and learning, I really feel like we have now a better appreciation of what digital can do in terms of our classes, in terms of learning, in terms of managing the materials that we have, in terms of tracking the progress of our students, because with all these digital components, we can harvest data. And it's data that probably before it was stacks and stacks of paper and we just, I don't want to go through it. But now it's so just easy to harvest that data and to make sure we put that into the decision making, how we design our programs. Also, it can be at the same time, it could marginalize, but it could be a great equalizer as well. Because for those who do not have access to tuition fee of a physical schooling, perhaps an online schooling will also be much more manageable, right? So for me, those are the stuff on my end, bro. Maybe being in edtech.
Well, conscious of the time, I agree actually with you that there are things that will stay, and that the students who are now primary level, for example, or basic ed, they know how to use Zoom. So that's a skill that you will never let go. You know how to run an online class. You actually know how to set up meetings in online class. You will use that skill forever from now on. But more important than that is maybe to end this part, especially for our session, maybe I'd like to ask Chelo first to review, because there were some people who were not here earlier. If you can review the tips that we have for a quick one, a brief review, so that we can put together what we have learned today.
Sure. So before I close, here are the tips. Number 1, understand context. Number 2, open communication lines between parents, teachers, and students. Number 3, maintain good time management. Number 4, consider learning styles of students and available technology. Number 5, the teacher determines overall pacing. Number 6, integrate co-curricular activities like arts and sports for a well-rounded education and to address other intelligence areas. Enroll in ACS Manila. Number 7, prioritize family time as a value because it is divinely ordained. Number 8, teach values as a fundamental goal. The rest will follow. Number 9, believe in the next generation. They are worth fighting for.
Thank you so much, Chelo. Thank you for that. Myself being an educator for years, I have learned so much from your unique perspective. And as a parent, you as a parent and also a homeschooler, I believe that there was really something that we can learn from one who has experienced homeschooling for so many years. We also would want to give a huge thank to the students who openly and in good intention shared their thoughts and feelings about online distance learning. Thank you to their parents and guardians who said yes for their kids being interviewed today. We have Suri and Miss Gigi, Liam, Lance, Ella, and Mr. Luis, Anne and Mrs. Mary Ann, Jorik and Miss Cheryl, Pauline and Mrs. Catherine, Bea, Savi and Mr. Francis, Sophia and Miss Melissa, Belle and Julia. So we will not have time for questions, but we have something like this, right? Before we end this, we have a way, of course, to discuss some more questions with you after 5:37 or 5:38. What are we going to do, Abby?
Yeah. May I give my parting words before?
Of course, yes, also.
Okay. Thank you. I know that this discussion focuses on tips on homeschooling, but my heart in agreeing to speak today is also to rally both parents and educators. The world will attempt to steal the hearts of our children. Many voices will neutralize true north in their value system so that right and wrong become blurred. Today, the specific target is the mind with a strategy to lure their thinking through emotions, and it comes ever so subtly in the crevices of today's tools. I want to rally all of us who hold the baton of teaching today. The next generation is worth fighting for. Let us not abdicate. Let us be vigilant. We don't just pass on the baton, we run the journey called life alongside them until they find their own strength for the marathon called life. Thank you to all of you who made time to listen. Thank you to the entire team for this discussion, to De La Salle College of St. Benilde, Power Mac, and especially HIFI. God bless you. Soli Deo Gloria.